I wanted to focus, thank you for being here. I wanted to focus.
Thanks for the chance to do this.
Of course. On antitrust law and get your opinion on something.
Please.
More than anything else. There was a recent Justice Department paper that said, and I quote, "The fundamental reason we favor competition over monopoly is that competition tends to drive markets to a more efficient use of scarce resources." So I was wondering, in your opinion, given the scope of this committee, how does participation of smaller firms in the market increase economic efficiency?
I think the economy and the jurisdiction that provides an environment in which the best ideas get a test in the market is the jurisdiction that's going to be more prosperous than others. And quite often, the good idea, whether it's about a product, about how to deliver an existing product, how to organize a particular form of business entity, those ideas often come from new entrepreneurs. So that the contribution of new entrepreneurs in a number of different settings is a tremendous spur to economic progress, and that is, I think, not simply through antitrust enforcement, but through a collection of policies that I would call competition policy, have a tremendous contribution to make. And this committee's work is part of that.
And do you, in your opinion, do you see any correlation or anything you want to add about what we're dealing with as a Congress with the larger financial market and where smaller firms would fit into that?
Financial services is an area where Congress decades ago decided that with the most limited exceptions, we don't participate. That is, that's one of the major carve-outs from our jurisdiction. There are some areas where we act, but with respect to the larger phenomena that this body has been focusing on in recent days and the upheaval in that sector, those are institutions, for the most part, that are beyond the scope of our examination.
Right. Thank you. I have no further questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Schuster.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here today. And I'm sorry I didn't hear your testimony earlier and didn't hear some of the other questions, so if I'm asking if these are redundant, please let me know. But we talked, my colleague from Georgia mentioned the intellectual property rights, and as I guess in full disclosure, I should say I'm a former automobile dealer, so I know firsthand the situation here. And my question deals with what are the rights of, or when you're viewing these cases, on investment in not only the auto manufacturer investing huge sums of capital to develop these products and parts, but the auto dealer who's also investing thousands and millions of dollars in some cases on repair facilities, and that they should have a competitive advantage, in my view. If I'm spending the money, I'm the one who has to sign a deal with the auto manufacturer to carry their product lines. What's weight is given to that, and how am I protected to make sure my investment is protected when you come into a situation?
Well, something that you've certainly observed from your previous life in that sector is that the automobile sector in North America, I think we might say, is pretty competitive.
Extremely.
During my childhood growing up in southeastern Michigan, there were 4 companies you talked about, 3 big ones, American Motors on the fringe, and a couple of quaint things called Volkswagen Beetles driving around. That's not the industry we see today, is it? Notice how many choices for original equipment consumers have. A basic assumption we would make as a starting point is that those manufacturers have every possible incentive to get things right with respect to the design of the distribution system. And generally speaking, providing incentives for them to invest in improving that distribution system is an important value to be recognized. At the same time, if I were to go back to my home at George Washington, where if I weren't doing this, I would be teaching contracts in the first semester, I don't doubt that there are instances in which you see disagreements between the manufacturer and the dealer about that relationship over time. Perhaps you had some of those yourself.
Every day.
Every day. And generally in our country, with respect to those kinds of disagreements, that's largely been the province of contract law. It's not that the disappointed dealers invariably are marching in to courtrooms, to wage battles over time. And there can be instances in which the manufacturer or perhaps a dealer can behave opportunistically to exploit certain investments that are made. But that's generally been the province where we examine that. Or in the antitrust arena, I think because our courts and our Supreme Court has been concerned about those incentives to invest, they've tended to impose fairly demanding requirements on antitrust plaintiffs, including us, who would want to upset or challenge activity and behavior that's taking place in the course of that relationship.
The notion that it's anti-competitive out there because the dealers or the manufacturers aren't giving out that information, to me, it's a ruse, I believe, because as my colleague stated, of the 500 million repairs, 70 to 80% of them were done by independent shops. Also, I'm sure within 45 minutes of where we sit today, you can get any car that you a Toyota, a Ford, a Chrysler, you can get it repaired by multiple of those dealerships around the area. So there's the competition is robust. On firsthand, there were 45 Chrysler dealers within 45 minutes of my store.
Congratulations.
So the idea that there's not competition, would you agree with that? I mean, there's robust competition between automobile dealers.
I believe there is, and I wouldn't denigrate the role that independents have. That is, sometimes independents, and I suspect it was your experience too, sometimes they see a better way to do this. Right. And we would be interested, we do examine and take seriously the examination of why they would not receive access. And there are instances in which we would be doubting of that, but generally speaking, if we compare the automobile sector that we know today to the automobile sector of, well, my childhood, it's been a dramatic transformation in the direction of better choices for consumers.
And I think you make an excellent point. Before I was in the automobile business, I worked with Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company and spent time in the retail operations, which are independent operators, and many times you do find that they can find a better way or a more efficient way to repair an automobile. So I've seen it from both sides, and I just on this legislation that I think we're talking about just seems to me it's not necessary because there is robust competition. There is information provided to the independent garages, and it's maybe not perfect, the information flow, but it gets out there. So I appreciate your time today, and thank you. Yield back.
Thank you.